Hey, this is Dan with Guardian Mold Prevent, and I want to take a look at another moldy home with you. This one located in Mount Prospect, Illinois. And as you see, while we pan around the basement here, some moisture had gotten in as a result of the sump pump failing in this basement. And it was quite some time before it was realized that the sump pump was out and that the water had several inches of moisture in it. That moisture sat for quite some time and almost like a pressure cooker in this basement. Not only did the base of the walls get wet and moldy, but much of the ceilings were affected and the upper portions of the walls, even in areas where the water hadn't directly affected those materials, because the actual condensation and humidity level in this basement was extremely high. And as the mold started to take hold and the humidity levels started to, essentially drive the mold growth in this basement. So we were called in to perform a mold remediation project here and try to get this basement back into a livable space. Now, when we take on a mold remediation project, the very first thing that we do is we try to identify the types of materials that are present inside of the workspace. You've got three classes of materials that we break it down into. You've got porous materials, which are drywall, trim, insulation, pressboard, paneling, items where mold can grow into a porous material and we can't extract or kill the mold in that material, so therefore we have to physically remove it and discard it. And then you have semi-porous materials, so your wood framing members, and then non-porous would be your concrete foundation walls and floors. Now, it's important to identify those because as we put together a scope of work, we determine what's present and then we decide how to go about performing the remediation. The first thing we do is set up containment, so we would seal off the workspace from the rest of the living space, so as to keep the air quality from being contaminated in the spaces outside of the workspace. We then put in an air scrubber or a negative air machine to run all the air through HEPA filtration, and most of the time we set that space under negative air pressure, again to keep from exchanging air with the rest of the living space. We then remove and discard all of your porous materials, so your drywall, trim, insulation, the items that are porous, and then we treat with a biocide and coat with a mold-resistant coating both the non-porous and the semi-porous materials. Now you'll notice as we pan around this basement that a lot of the framing ended up getting removed because the framing had sat under water for so long that it was rotten all the way through. So while it's not always the case in mold remediation, much of the time we can salvage the semi-porous material and keep a homeowner from having to reframe the basement and save them several $1,000s. In this case, several of the exterior walls, on several walls we had to remove the framing altogether. Now you can see there are other areas where we were able to scrub those surfaces down, treat them and coat them, and they were structurally sound and good for reconstruction purposes going forward. We run the air machines while we're working the entire time through the project, and then we continue to run those machines after the remediation project for 2 to 3 days, depending on the scope and the size of the problem. Now I want to show you that tool that I'm talking about, that air scrubber. It's a machine that runs all the air through HEPA filtration. So you've got a 12-inch HEPA filter, a carbon filter, a pleated filter, and then at the very top you'll see there's a blue pre-filter on top of the machine. This machine is what will set a mold remediation company apart from just Joe Handyman, who promises to take care of your mold remediation. This will restore the air quality in the living space and get you back to acceptable level.